All right, welcome back to the program. In case you're just joining us, it's time for our conversation now. At the beginning of the show, I did tell you that I'll be looking at population economics today. 11th of July is celebrated around the world as the World Population Day. Nigeria also commemorated that day on Saturday. I have the acting chairman, National Population Commission, joining me here in the studio. He's Dr. Eyitayo Oyetunji. I don't know if you're still a lecturer in National Defense Academy. I know more because of yes, a federal commissioner at the NPC representing Oyo State between 2017 to 2020. All right, welcome to the program. Let me start with this question. How many are we in Nigeria right now?
Well, that question looks very simple, but it's not as simple as it seems. We can only determine how many we are in Nigeria if we have a census, an accurate census. However, in the absence of a census, we do what is called projections. By that projection, which are estimates, today we should be about 206 million.
Okay, so we're 206 million people now. Because I think the UN some months ago did say we are 201 million people. What kind of projections do you use that puts our population at 206 million as of today?
We use a projection that is called the cohort component method. That looks at population dynamics from the point of view of fertility, mortality, and migration. Using those indicators, we try to determine what the growth of the population should be like. And that's what we've used in a publication that we shall soon publish to determine that by that projection, Nigeria should be 206 million this year.
This year?
Yes.
Okay, because I was thinking, is it today? Will it change? Will it change in a few months' time? You know, how do you project the change? What do they call it again in science? You know, the variation of change. You know, so we'll be 206 million this year.
Exactly.
Okay.
By our estimates, we're growing now at 2.56%, almost 2.6% annually.
Okay, 2.56%?
Yes,
annually. That's the annual growth rate.
Yes.
Okay, and our economic growth rate is definitely lesser than this.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have a lot to catch up on. Do you think that this pandemic and the great lockdown that we've seen globally and has affected Nigeria, do you think it would also affect population?
Yes, certainly. From the theme of the World Population Day, which is putting the brakes on the pandemic to safeguard the rights and health of women and children, some of the concerns that we have is that those commodities for family planning that would otherwise have been available at all times were not as accessible as they should have been to women during this period. And that is coming at a time when most couples were actually staying at home. So you have a situation where couples are staying at home while at the same time they do not have ready access to family planning method. The results you can guess. Yes.
So that means as a result of this pandemic and and the great lockdown, we'll definitely have a lot of babies being born. Perhaps that would impact the 206 million people that we are this year.
That's to be expected for those factors that I just mentioned. That when people are not active in other activities and they are staying at home, it should be expected that that will be one of the activities they will be engaged in. And like I said, it's also because of the lockdown and because of the health, the pressure on the health facilities, many of the women that would otherwise have gone for family planning methods at this period are less likely to do so. And when you don't have family planning preventive measures, the result is you're likely to have increase in the rate of birth.
Now speak to me about the theme for this year. The theme of this year has to do with women and all of that. Just speak to me about it.
Yes, women and girls. Women, you know, constitute about half of our population. And we have found that they are the most vulnerable in the population, especially at a time like this. You know, most of our women are employed in the informal sector. and the lockdown has impacted negatively on that sector. During the lockdown, most people couldn't go out, and that meant that most people were unable to engage in their normal businesses. And this is where you have most of the women. That is the economic impact. In terms of health also, during this period, the hazards that women have faced and girls has been higher. The third area in which women and girls have been impacted is in the area of violence. We have violence in the homes, and the reports are obvious. Because of the pandemic, there's been an increase in violence against women, violence against girls. Daily, we hear reports all over the country.
How do you think, because if I just oppose what you've just said right now in terms of women and perhaps the role of women as the theme is looking at this year, what comes to my mind is the Nigerian Living Standard Survey that was released by the NBS, I think sometime last week. And it did say in that report that about 18.6% of households are headed by women. So that means it's quite key what this population theme is about. I don't know if I need to ask you again, because it seems that everyone knows what our demography is. Nigeria has a youthful population, isn't it?
Exactly.
Between the ranges of what and what?
Between more than 43% of our population presently is below the age of 15.
More than 43%?
Yes.
Is below the age of 15?
15, yes.
Wow, that's close to half of the population.
Yes. And that has far-reaching implications. But you were talking about that survey. The National Population Commission, we also did a survey in 2014, violence against children. And that's the first of its kind in the whole of West Africa. And that survey revealed a lot. It revealed, for example, that 1 out of every 4 girls has suffered violence before the age of 18 in Nigeria. But when we talk about violence, we're talking about not just physical violence. We're talking about also emotional violence, that sexual violence, physical violence. The prevalence rate that we discovered from that survey was higher than we had imagined. And also, in the survey we did in 2018, the Nigeria Demographic and Health Survey, we also found, because 3 of our modules were focused on women empowerment, the involvement of women in decision-making within the household, also health of women. We also looked at harmful practices against women. And in all these areas, we found that despite the various interventions, the indices are rising. There's more violence against women. Women, even though they are more involved in the labor market, are not as involved in decision-making in the household as they should be. And you know, when women are not involved in decision-making, it has implications even for the nutrition, the well-being of the children, because it's the women that directly take care of the children. When women are not involved in health decisions, they are unable to take advantage of all the health facilities that are available to them, because often they may need the permission of their husbands before they can access these facilities. So all the surveys we've done shows that there's need for more intervention in empowering women, in putting an end to harmful practices, and in promoting the health of women and girls, as well as in increasing education of women. In that area, for example, we found that the incidence of early marriage is not reducing at the pace that we would have wished that it will reduce. And people have emphasized that aspect. We're not saying that schools must reopen, but we're just highlighting, excuse me, that when schools are shut down, girls don't go to school, and that gives room for early marriages. Some of them will drop out eventually. Some of them are subjected to sexual violence because they're at home and all of that. So these are some of the effects that the pandemic has had on women and girls.
You know, with what you're saying right now, women, my brain is thinking in the way that could also be a kind of population control. Because for you to control population, perhaps, Doctor, you're laughing, you know, you're smiling, you know where I'm going to. I caught you there, you couldn't escape it. For you, you know, part of population control could be like delayed marriages, education, even for girls, women empowerment, poverty eradication, and all of that. Because perhaps when women are more educated, when they are more empowered, their decisions, you know, of perhaps having a child on time, early marriage, they can take those decisions. Are there control measures for population in Nigeria?
Oh, yes. We don't like to use words like control. You know, population issues are issues of human rights and issues of choice. What we do is we enlighten you to know the best choice to make. Everyone should be free to determine the number and the spacing of children they want. And that's why there's no legislation, you know, to determine, for example, how many children you should have and all of that. But we put in place measures to help in decision making. Yes, like you've said, when girls go to school, they don't marry early. And that's good for them to delay having birth. And of course, it has health implications. They are more matured before they start bearing. And when women are engaged in economic activities too, it also enhances spacing of children. So you're right that indirectly, that's why we promote all of this, not just for health reasons, but also to reduce the number of children that women will have to something that will be safe for their health.
Now, I'll come back to that issue a bit, but let me talk about the issue of census. Our last census, I think, was done in 2006.
You're right.
Yes. When do we hope for a new census? Because census is supposed to be done every 10 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Exactly.
Yes. So the last census we would have done should have been in 2016. Are there talks for a census? I know that, of course, we are suffering a pandemic, but what is the commission doing around gathering head count of people? Because we have data all about, so I chose my word, head count.
Incidentally, I don't think I like that word, head count. A census is not about a count.
Okay.
You know, a census, we use the word enumeration because apart from the figures, we get information about persons. We get other more valuable information. For example, what's the level of education? In what area of the economy are you participating? We do housing census now. What is the living condition of the household and all that? Often in this country, we put too much emphasis on the numbers, but we are more interested in the features, the characteristics of the population, because that's much more useful for planning. But coming back to the census, yes, of course, the National Population Commission has been planning towards the next census. As you said, the norm internationally is that every 10 years, decennially, there should be a census. Mm-hmm. And it's good when that is kept regularly, because then you can make comparison with what is happening within the country and between countries. Unfortunately, we have not been able to do ours since 2016. But preparations from the side of National Population Commission, we are prepared for the next census. And we have reached out, we've submitted our budget, we've submitted our timelines to government. And government was in the process of looking at what we submitted when the COVID-19 pandemic broke out. Okay. But a major preparatory activity that's ongoing, that we started, is what is called the enumeration area demarcation. We started that process, and presently we have covered 228 local governments out of the 774 local governments. We're hoping to continue this process because the enumeration demarcation exercise in itself has so much benefits for the country, even apart from preparing for the census. The kind of information we get from that exercise is such that we are mapping the entire country. We'll be able to have information on all the road networks, on all the households, on all structures, all infrastructure, all facilities. As a matter of fact, for those local governments who have completed already, we have information on all the buildings in all such local government. Every building, whether it's a hut, whether it's a...
In the 228 local governments?
Yes, we have that information presently.
Are you sharing
We have information on the number of households in each of those buildings that are residential. We have information on all schools, whether private, whether public, that are in those local government. We can tell you not just their names, but where they are located geographically. Because we're using modern technology, we're using what is called satellite imageries. And using these imageries, we're able to show not sketches of buildings, but they are real photographs. And in a photograph of a building, we can tell you there are 3 households in that building. We can tell you there are 4 households in that building. We can even give you the estimate of the number of persons in each of those households.
Okay.
We can give you all the streets in each of those local governments. For those we've done, and so we're speaking with the leadership, so that we can continue this process, because the benefits can be useful even in addressing some of the things that have come out of the pandemic.
I'm really impressed with what you're telling me right now, that if you have that kind of data for 228 local governments in Nigeria, specifically even the houses, the households, if you are sharing the data with other parts of perhaps your colleagues in government, because you're also in government. For example, the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Social Development. You saw what happened during the lockdown, palliatives and all of that. This is the kind of data that can be shared so that we know how many households we have, how many of them are in a household. Let me also ask you this question, which is, from this which you've done, what is the average number of people in a household?
Yeah, we did a survey in 2018.
Okay. And
according to that survey, the average household size should be 4.7. But of course, you know, there's so much variety in Nigeria. That is, in some parts of the country, it can be as low as 4. In other parts of the country, it's as high as 6.5. So there's so much diversity in terms of the sizes.
So your average is about 4.7?
4.7.
Okay. Now let's take a look at population policy. Do we have, because I think there was one that was done, what do you call it, National Population Policy 2004?
For sustainable development.
Yes.
Yes.
That ended, I think, in 2015, 2004.
Yes.
Yeah, so speak to me about, yes.
Yes, the last policy was in 2004, and the targets for our indicators was designed to coincide with the MDGs. And by the end of the MDGs, that policy was due for review, because we're supposed to look at our performance under the policy against the MDGs. Now that we've started the SDGs, we're reviewing the policy. And I'm happy to say that the review process has been completed, and we have approval to present that policy to the Federal Executive Council. The delay in doing that presentation has been the COVID, because as you're aware, the FEC has been meeting virtually. And that has, but the process has been completed, except that if we have opportunity, some of the emerging issues, especially from COVID, will have maybe wanted to integrate into the new policy. So the policy has been reviewed and is due to be approved and launched.
What kind of policy should we be looking at in Nigeria that will also improve what we have, or that will add, or that will be an incentive for economic growth in Nigeria? Because just like you said earlier, that more than 43% of households in Nigeria are below 15 years, of persons rather, are below 15. What kind of population policy are we looking at? We know what happened in China. They did have, I think, the one-child policy. I think in some areas they also lifted it, that you can, because they also saw that that policy was also hindering them. So what kind of policy are we looking at?
If you ask me, the time has come for us to shift our paradigm from money metric measures of development to human capital development. Because our greatest asset is our population. Today, as I speak with you, Nigeria is the 5th largest population in the whole world. 5th? In the whole world.
We're no longer 7?
No.
I thought we were 7?
With the growth.
Yeah.
The state of the world population is likely to be launched in the course of this week as part of the world population activities. And according to that report, Nigeria has moved to the 5th position in the world. That we can turn into an asset. As we're facing challenges with crude oil, we should begin to move towards human capital. And I'm happy that even Mr. President has recognized that, because the theme that he has also chosen and given to one of our major institutes is the theme on human capital. So for development and economic growth, we should begin to put emphasis on human capital. And under this, there's what we call the demographic dividend. So we do now have a policy working towards harnessing the demographic dividend. What is this policy all about? Is that now that our population is becoming youthful, growing out of a population made up of children, we're now having people that are growing into working age, people that can become less dependent on others. We should invest in the youth. We should invest in the youth, and that's what harnessing the demographic dividend is all about, investing in the youth. It's a multi-sectoral approach where all sectors have to work together. There has to be a review and improvement in our educational system that is going to focus more on skill acquisition. There has to be a review in terms of creating employment for the youth. There has to be a review in terms of good governance and so on. It's a multi-sectoral approach that requires commitment and political will. When this is put in place, we can turn our youthful population into an asset rather than a liability. I tell you what, if we don't do that, we are walking towards a disaster. The way things are now is that our youth have become so dependent that you have situations where parents are the ones who marry for their children. They're the ones who are taking care of their grandchildren. Most of these parents are already in retirement. The youth are supposed to be the ones working and providing resources to pay for the pension of the elderly. But it's the other way around presently. The elderly that are in already earning pension are the ones who are catering for their children, catering for their grandchildren, and some of them may be so unlucky that, oh well, I don't want to use the word unlucky. Some of them, their own parents too are alive. And they are the ones taking care of their own parents as well. And yet they're already in retirement. So if we don't take drastic steps to empower the youth and to invest in them, because if you have this army of young people and they are wealthy, the wealth of the country will be transformed. When you have the larger segment of the population being wealthy, your country is wealthy. But when that segment is poor, you're moving towards a vicious cycle of poverty. But I'm happy that the present government is fully aware of this, and some of the measures that have been taken are taken to address these issues.
Let's go back to the issue of that census again, because I'm quite interested, despite that I know this pandemic definitely will affect a lot of things. I don't think this is a good time to begin to do census. But when do you anticipate that a census can be done? You know, because like I always say, what you can't measure, you can't manage. And from what you're saying now, we have a youthful population. If we use it to our advantage, definitely it will be better for us as an economy. So is the Commission planning? What is your forecast as in when we'll do a census, an enumeration, as you call it, not a head count,
Yes.
as I said?
Like I told you, we have worked out the census budget. We have worked out the timeline. And we had submitted it to government, indicating the time that we will wish that the census is conducted. And that proposal was considered. And it was in the process of being approved when the COVID-19 broke out. So we have, in terms of review, now said, okay, as a first step, let's conclude the enumeration demarcation exercise while we watch to see what happens next year. We had hoped that in the next couple of years, the census will be conducted. In terms of preparations, we are on course with our preparations. But of course, you know, there are so much has come up now. Apart from security, now we have COVID-19. These are issues that can impair on the conduct of any census. You can't begin to go to people's houses under the present circumstances. And like I said, with the security situation as well, there are some places that are too risky to go into now. Those are issues that are beyond our own control and beyond the control of anyone whatsoever.
Yes, I do understand that. But is the Commission also looking at sharing data from other agencies that gather data? Because some have also argued, do you need to do another census when we have BVN that has captured over 38 million Nigerians, and each BVN is particular to one person? You have FRSC vehicle particulars or driver's license rather. You have what's the
especially
other
NIMC
one?
now.
National.
NIMC.
What's the other? NIMC. Yes. So you have a lot of that data.
The kind of data that is collected during census cannot be compared with any of those.
What makes it different? Because in my wallet now I have my driver's license, my name is there, my age, my blood type is there, my house address or my office address is there. What else again do I have on my driver's license? BVN, my name, almost the same thing. My house address, which the banks also come to verify.
The kind of job you do.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not there, for example. Your level of education, how you've progressed, is not there. When we come to your household, your living condition, in a housing census, for example, we collect information about the building in which each household resides. What kind of building is it? Is it made of block? Is it made of mud? Does it have cemented floor? How many rooms are they sharing as living rooms? What infrastructure is available to them? What kind of lighting do they use? Where do they dispose their refuse? We ask questions like,
toilets?
Yeah, do they have toilets? Do they have water running in the house? Do they go to a public tap? Is there a well? We use all this to aggregate the living condition of the household. That kind of information you can't get from anywhere. And the information is linked. For example, National Population Commission registers birth.
Yeah.
You can't say because you know your age is sufficient. No. When we register birth, we try to link it with other things. We link it to your location. Where were you born? Who were your parents? We try to develop your family tree, your linkages and so on, so that over time, you don't just come and say, I was born in Asokoro. We want to know where were you born. We have a register with our registrar who keeps the records of all those who were born in Asokoro in that week that you were born. And if you were not born there, we'll be able to tell you who were your parents. We'll be able to link the tree of your ancestry and all of that. So just getting a snapshot of that information is not as good, it's not sufficient for planning purposes because there's need for linkages. Of course, we're collaborating with these agencies. Now you know that all data is being harmonized. All biometric data is being harmonized under NIMC. So there's a measure of collaboration already. And I just told you the EAD will be useless if we don't share the information with others. The security agencies will be very interested in what we are bringing out of the EAD, for example. So data will be meaningless if it is not shared with those who will use it to implement programs, who will use it to evaluate their programs. For example, in the theme for the World Population Day, our role is minimal. Our role is to provide information about the situation of the women and the girls. For those who are in programming, to use, to do new policies and to evaluate ongoing programs. So in terms of data sharing, it is key because it will be useless to just have information that is not being used by others.
This population conversation is getting interesting, and I just have about 2-3 minutes with you because I have another guest who will still dissect this issue. But since you spoke about for 3% of persons in Nigeria below 15, can you give me what other aggregates that you have? How many percentage of men do we have over women? Because before it used to be, you know, almost close. What are the ages that, let's say between 15 and 35 is so percentage and all of that. So I would even know where I fall into.
You're in the majority. And that's heartwarming that we have such intelligent people as the largest segment of our population. The country is becoming like other countries. We have aging as well as an issue. Because of improvement in health services, our population is also growing to old age. So we do have up to about 3% to 6% of the population now over 70, you know, and that's an improvement because that's an improvement for our life expectancy, for example. I may not be able to give you accurate figures about all the age groups, you know, like that, because the age groups are grouped in ages of 0 to 5, 5 to 10, and so on. offhand like that, I may not give you an accurate information. But what I can tell you is that because of improvement in our health facilities, our population is moving upwards from infant population to a more youthful population.
Is there, okay, what's our life expectancy?
I would rather not give you now because we're publishing a document on it, and we're in the process of finalizing that document.
Okay, so when it comes out, I should be.
Oh yes,
I should
in
have
the
it.
next. The document is almost ready.
Okay,
and we'll wait for that publication and have something that is more accurate.
Okay. Finally, with Nigeria's youthful population, I'm still going back, that is a startling data for me this morning, for 3% of persons below 15 years. And I think my son is there, you know, for 3%. So that means I think 57% are above 15.
Yes.
That's what it means. Is there really like a risk to it? That means all of us that are youthful would perhaps age at the same time. Are you foreseeing perhaps, and with perhaps higher level of education, women empowerment, poverty reduction and all of that, are you foreseeing a risk moving forward? Like that of China, you know, one child policy, have a child. I think somewhere in Asia, is it Japan or so, they are even begging women to marry. So as a man, if you are not rich enough, you go Google it, everyone watching. If you are not rich enough, you can't marry. If you have a rich guy, and not too rich guy, the lady takes the rich guy. So it has become like that. Do you foresee Nigeria like that, like in the next 30, 40, 50 years?
Yes, well, it will take more than those number of years, because there's what we call population momentum. Before the momentum would drop, it will take much more than that. But of course, that is the trend. Population growth is a cycle, and that's the trend, that as you have improvement in health and all of that, population grow older. And that's what you're having in Europe, in Japan, where you have aged population without a youthful base. And that's why many of them now, in some kind of crisis, there's need to get more migrants to come into the country, because now you have more population. In those countries, for example, they've had to extend the retirement age, you know, because there aren't
70,
many youthful people coming into the labor force. So if we continue to invest in our youth and all of that, it is likely that we will go in the same pattern. But the good thing is that when you invest in the youth, they will have created so much wealth and development that it can sustain the population even beyond them.
I think we'll leave it at that, Doctor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for speaking with me this morning.
Thank you for bringing me on the program.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Doctor.
You.
All right, I've been speaking with my guest. We've been looking at population economics. You've heard so many breaking stories, news from him. 43% of Nigerians are below 15. They will soon launch a report. I've been speaking with Dr. Itai Oyetunji, who is the acting chairman, National Population Commission. Let's quickly take a break to bring in my second guest, Princewill Eziukwu, who is a development economist, a chartered accountant. Let's further break down the numbers that Dr. Oyetunji has given to me right now. Let's quickly take a break. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the program. In case you're just joining us, you've missed the first half of the program. Dr. Itai Oyetunji, who is the acting chairman, National Population Commission, spoke to me just a few minutes ago. Princewill Eziukwu is joining me right now. He's a chartered accountant and development finance expert. Hello, Princewill, and thank you for joining me. How are you today?
I'm fine, and good morning, Nigerians.
Good morning to you too. Princewill, were you watching my interview with the NPC acting chairman just a few minutes ago?
Yes, I did briefly though.
Yes, so you heard some of what he said. He also said it here on the program just a few minutes ago that Nigeria's population growth is at 2.56%. And I'm interested in that because, you know, for a lot of us that watch data, you see a lot of people quoting different things. So Nigeria's population grows at 3%, 3.5%, 2.6%. But now we heard from the population, the NPC chief. What significance is that number vis-a-vis our economic growth that is below 2%? And precisely, we are facing a pandemic right now. Definitely we'll be in a recession this year, no doubt. Perhaps next year also. So as a development expert, what are you going to be doing with those numbers?
Okay, thank you for having me once again. Uh, I'm happy that we have somebody uh, his caliber to come to this program to help us, dissect these numbers. First and foremost, 2.56% of our population growth. That's huge. That's good because I want to take my presentation from two sides. One, the effect of population growth on the economy. While looking at the effect on population growth on the economy, we look at it from when the economy is doing well and then when the economy is not doing well. Of course, we know population, labor is a factor of production. And as a factor of production, it adds to, if you're able to use it, it will add to your economic growth. Fine. But also, with a higher population growth comes reduction in labor costs. That's the value people now place on those labor costs. So if unchecked, automatically the labor costs will dissect the per capita income of the GDP. So that's where we are today. Now we are faced with a situation where the economy is not really growing, at par with the population growth. That means at birth, some of our people are already being given birth into poverty. That's what one figure that means. Also, it means that is further reducing the per capita income per person. Because if 100 people, our GDP today is 448 billion US dollar. So when you divide it by our population of 206
million,
139,000, about 589 people. Divide that, of course, you're having around $2,200 or thereabout. So when the population keep growing and it's not growing at the same rate or even lower than the economic growth, it means that your per capita income is being, reduced. Now, this is throwing up a whole lot of issue. We are still considering the population growth. The more the population growth, it means we need to invest more in the human capital development subsector, like the education sector, the health, because these people that are being given birth to, you need to train them, send them to school. Now you need to maintain the level of education, and maintaining the level of education becomes more difficult because there are more people who are attending those schools. But now let's look at the figures. 43% of our people are below
15 years.
15
years.
15 years, sorry, 15 years. That's huge. So it means when you subtract the 14 million that are out of school, that are moving around on the street. So I think this is a serious wake-up call for us to take proactive decisions on early school living, the primary school, our primary school system, because they are considering our 43%, our primary school system, our secondary school system, which is the key. If you're able to get them at that point, ensure that there is a linkage between that 15 years to when they will actually be going into 20 and 25. It's a headlong task that I believe that all of us should wake up. So, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing because we've seen the importance of a youthful population to the COVID-19 scenario. We've seen that countries that have aging population, they are worse hit. While countries with relatively young population, they are not hit as their counterpart that an aging population. So it's a very good thing. But to me, as to determine whether it's good or bad, is subject to the policy space and the proactive policy that the governance structure have actually put on ground for these people. So for us, out of school, we should declare state of emergency, to out of school, because if we fail to add value to this population, 43%, if we fail to add value to this population in the next 5, 6, 10 years, when they must have become, some of them will be 20 and below, some will even be more than 25. So this is their key productive period. If we're unable to get them, what happens is that the economy will not be able to contribute to. Now we're having that we're going to, in quarter 4, we might actually go into recession. So we're looking at negative growth, coupled with 2.56 population growth. So it's a serious issue, and I think all policymakers across board, this is not the time for PDP and NPC. Everybody, you and I, everybody have to make sure We need to create systems that will support, pick out one person from there. And I think this also supports my position all this while, that where we have major challenge between those 15 and 25, the unemployment, the youth unemployment of 15 to 25, that is our key issue.
Okay.
So we need to get these people.
Okay, Princewill, let me just halt you a bit, because as you're speaking and as the NPC chair did break it to me earlier, about 43% of our population are below 15 years. It's sending chills around my body, really. And I really had to do my little mathematics quickly. What it means is that about 88.58 million Nigerians. He did tell me earlier that 206 million will be 206 million this year, with a population growth rate of 2.56%. So doing my mathematics, about 88.58 million of those are below 15 years. You know, sometimes when we use statistics, we need to humanize those statistics so that people will understand what I'm saying. So 88.58 million are children below the ages of 15. What it means is that the remainder of about 117 point something million are the rest of us. From your analysis, we have about 13.5 million children out of school. If you take away, that's 88.5, which I did say, 88.5 million minus 13.5 million. That means we have about 75 million children. Yes. I hope people are understanding my vibe this morning. You know, I'm trying to explain those numbers.
Nancy, in short, let me if you look at the unemployment rate from 15 to 60, that's the active population age, right?
Yes.
Now that's the productive age. Now we have 43% from your figure, about 88 million people falling from 1 to 15.
Yes.
Now from the National Bureau of Statistics, about another 42% are unemployed. So we have another 88 million unemployed. So when you bring 88 million of, you know, inactive on the non-productive age of 1 to 15, that's 88, plus additional 80 that is unemployed. Now that is over 166. So now we are not considering the people from 65 and above. So you see that the productive age, the productive people within the system is very low. Mm-hmm. So because the productive age, the productive people, the people that are actually growing the GDP is just a selected few. So it causes, it's opening up another policy space for us as a people to say there is need for us to take active decision in job creation. Now, the 43 million, the 80 million and above people that are unemployed, that should be employed, that are unemployed, not because of their own making, that they do not have the necessary skill. They have the necessary skill, but because the process, the area, the system did not make available jobs by way of, you know, job losses, companies folding, and what have you. So that's 206 million.
Hello, Princewill, are you still there? The picture is freezing. Let's try as much as possible to connect. Okay, Princewill, are you still there? Because the network is quite poor. Let's see if we can reconnect with Princewill. Let's use the... Okay, Princewill.
I'm here.
Okay, your picture was actually freezing earlier. The National Living Standards Survey was released by the National Bureau of Statistics. The acting chair of the NPC did tell me just a few minutes ago that the average number of people in a household is 4.7, but in their living standards report from the National Bureau of Statistics, they did tell us 5.1. How can you link this living standards and you know, our population with also economic growth? Also bearing in mind that the chair told me some minutes ago too that they've actually done survey of about 228 local governments, so they know what kind of houses, they know if people are living in thatched houses, your kind of residential buildings, if you have a toilet, and all of that. How do you link all of this? Who is working, who is not? You understand what I mean?
Yes. Okay, thank you. I think this is one of the most interesting area of economy, because it tries to help us to relate some of these figures with our daily, day-to-day activities. First and foremost, standard of living, a measure of how comfortable, people have access to the basic things of life. Now, we are not talking about luxury. We're talking of the, comfort. We're talking of having toilet facilities, talking of having accommodation where you can actually sleep, having access to basic food diets. So when we talk about if the economy is doing well, the economy is growing, there are jobs. Now, standard of living will grow. If there is inflation and the economy on itself is not doing too well, now people will spend more. People might even spend all their money trying to provide out-of-pocket healthcare for themselves and their family. Automatically, cost of living will be high because the inflation will affect everything you buy in the market. Your salaries are fixed. So when you take it to the market, it will affect it. That's taken. Now, but if the economy is doing well, people are being paid. Those who want to work have jobs, very comfortable jobs to do. Automatically, they will increase the GDP itself. Now, if the population is fairly healthy, they will be able to provide, produce and add to that national GDP. So the GDP per capita income will increase. The standard of living definitely will increase. So coming to household, with the unemployment rate hitting 43%, and now that we know that 1 to 15 is 43%, makes up 43% of our population, these people are not working. So they are depending on the 15 to 65. And out of that 16 to 65, about 43% of them are not working, leaving us to a further 57. So that means that 57 is providing for the 43% that are now working, that should be working. Also, they are providing for the 15%, the another 43% of 1 to 15. And they're also providing for, because the government is not doing any palliative. Government is not providing for anybody. So rather, the people, the 57% of the remaining active population, they are the one providing. So that is why you see the cost of living being astronomically high and the standard of living being very poor. Because many people are dependent on few people for livelihood.
Yes, because the larger percentage of people that we have that are youthful are doing actually nothing, or they are doing some little things. It's like a survival strategy in Nigeria. Just the final question. If you take a look at population pyramids, of course, we fall into the first one, which is about young, growing, thriving. The other population, the other population pyramid you have would be the elderly, and they are already shrinking, perhaps those in Europe and co. The third population pyramid will be that of stationary. That is like,
stagnation.
Yes, the stagnation. Those you're finding right now in some parts of Asia, whereby you see people living so long. Of course, life expectancy, that's a discussion for another day. Now,
54%.
Yes. Yeah, so with this that you're seeing in Nigeria, we fall into the first population pyramid. How much assets can we derive from this very quickly, even as we mark the World Population Day, and even as we battle the pandemic?
Yes, we need to, it calls for us to invest in our people. One, we need to retweak our educational system. As a matter of urgency, we need to look at basic healthcare provision, to ensure that our people are healthy. You cannot be productive when you have if you do not have a healthy population. So providing adequate, the National Assembly, as well as the executive counterparts, should ensure that as a matter of urgency, the healthcare sector is working. Now, our out-of-school children, we need to retweak it. We really need to, design incentive-based policy that can, ensure that our people, our children actually go back to school. And finally, there should be absolute need for us as a people to start thinking using what we make here in Nigeria, because that is the only way we can bring back factories. That is the only way we can give our people jobs.
The topic today. I wish you a great week. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you for having me.
All right, I've been speaking with Princewill Eziukwu, a development finance expert as well as a chartered accountant. So many statistics this morning, but I hope I've been able to humanize it for you. From the national population chief, we are the 5th largest population right now in the world. About 3 to 6% of people in Nigeria are over 70. You do the maths. 43% of Nigerians are below 15 years of age. So you do the maths. I did it actually earlier on so that you understand what I'm saying. And 4.7 people live in a household. That's the average. Some you can have more than 5.1, you can have more than 6.1. What it means when I'm saying 43% of us below 15, what it means is that Nigeria, we have infants, we have toddlers, and we have a lot of teenagers.